I'd like to call the meeting of the Parks and Recreation Committee to order. Today is Monday, February 13th. Roll call, starting from my left, please.
Sue Krieger.
Melissa Rhodes.
Bob Bauerheit.
Jill Reese.
Paul Pasolini.
You know what? I didn't get the posting of the meeting for you. It's in my mailbox. I'm sure.
Hold on, I can pull it up on my computer. Have the technology. If no one's opposed, I'll just read it out loud.
Please.
So I certify on Thursday, February 2nd, 2023, the agenda for the Town of Rome Parks and Rec meeting for Monday, February 13th, 2023 was emailed to the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune at 3:45 p.m., posted at Rome Town Hall at 3:50 p.m., posted at Quick Trip at 4:10 p.m., and posted at the Nakusa Port Edward State Bank at 4 p.m.
Thank you. That brings us to item 4, approval of today's agenda. Can we have a motion, please?
Motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. We have no citizen comments today, so I'll skip over item 5. That brings us down to no action contemplated except possible referral to future agendas. Number 6, reports on park planning and activities, update on park planning activities and construction update. Jamie and I had a meeting with the contractors on Friday, and everyone was there except for the plumbing guy, but he's kind of corresponded with us anyway, and he's right across the park over here anyway. So Jamie and one of the guys put together a timeline, and basically I think worst case scenario is that the construction activity for the masonry block starts on April 16th, and the project, if you go according to the timeline, would be completely done by August the 9th. Worst case scenario, I think it could still be done by September 30th at the very, very latest, you know, if we have weather or people who don't cooperate according to the plan. But the plan is set in place. Everybody talked about it, agreed to it. Some of them even said that, you know, weather permitting, they plan on getting started much earlier. And what they need is to have nighttime temperature conditions above freezing
Consistently, yeah.
to do block laying. And that's the first thing that has to really be done. So I'm hopeful this can be done this year and completed and knocked off the thing, and we can have a celebration, a dedication, and a concert, certainly by Memorial Day, if not before.
That'll be everything electric, phase 1, phase 2. Just won't have like a refrigerator, stuff like that in it probably.
No, all the cabinetry, countertops, and roll doors, but if, I think a fridge was the only thing, I don't know if we had a stove in there.
I don't think
No, we did not have a
stove.
stove, and we didn't have a fridge. We had a place for refrigeration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we can buy that
Yeah.
outright.
yep.
We did have the conversation about if we had winter events and the potential of could we use those restrooms. Because this building is black and doesn't have insulation, they don't think that's a good idea, even if you had space heaters. We do have space heaters within the gazebo building, so that might be a potential, but
Okay.
the contractors that were there was like, it's always gonna be much safer to get a porta potty, cause you don't risk wrecking things.
Okay,
Yeah, I think the only other thing that the contractors were concerned about was there was a stainless steel ledge called out in the plans for the roll-up windows. Or maybe it was not, maybe it was a laminated counter, I'm not sure. But they were gonna use stainless steel, and that's awfully expensive, and so they're looking for a substitute, and we suggested, you know, you could use a stone ledger or a concrete poured ledge.
Yes.
Either one would be fine as long as
stainless
it's.
steel would get too hot anyways, I would
Yeah,
think if
could
it's
be.
in the sun.
So anyway, they'll work on that, and we want to make sure we get the water turned on and stubbed out over there for them, so when they get started, they'll have water, and they've got electric there now, so that's all set.
Yep, and Eric from Advantage Plumbing got an email today with the request from the mason and just following up since he wasn't at the meeting on Friday, so knock on wood.
Yeah, the only other thing that came up was Adams County Electric needs to have a request in, and we're gonna put that in, for moving the electric pedestal from where it is to the side of the building. And well, not moving that, but actually doing the cabling. And we'll also have an internet cable put in there for that service later on, so that could be for Solaris.
Yep, Brad's handling that, so.
Now, any changes to the drawing, they've got to be submitted, and Jamie, you've got to approve them?
Yeah, there's a change request, and that'll actually go through our architect too, through Jim Lucas. He'll review those.
Right, I know with the stainless steel, something like that, when there's a change, they have to file that and you have to go through the paperwork and the process.
Yep.
Now, on the block work, have we got any electric or plumbing in the block work that's going up?
It's all basically stubbed out already through the concrete floor. It remains to be run yet within the building because the walls aren't up.
Right, what I'm saying, as they put the walls up, we've got to have the
Yeah, we
other
talked-
contractors come in and do their work so that
Yeah,
everything
we
falls
talked
in
about
place.
that. All the electric is going to be external
Okay.
EMT conduit, and they'll go through the finished wall to the other side when there's an outlet. So from the stage, you will not see any conduit. All the conduit will be inside the building.
Okay, well, I'm just want to make sure that the different contractors
we talked
coordinate
about-
with each other,
We
right?
talked about running conduit up through the block and all, and it's way
Right.
too complicated.
Right.
It doesn't need to be done. It'll be fine.
Okay, I just want to make sure, it's,
And again,
we
the
don't want to
plumber-
run into problems later.
The plumber was noticed today, so anything that he needs to put into the block, he knows the start date and that the mason would like him on site that first day, so.
Right, okay, good.
So hopefully that'll go as planned.
It looked good over there. I went over there and all the snow's off everything,
Is it?
so it looks nice and ready to go. Hopefully the weather keeps up.
Yeah, the first thing they're gonna do is put up the 2 courses of block, which would be the perimeter of the stage.
Right.
Backfill that, tamp it down, and then pour concrete over that. And while the mason is there, he's just gonna continue on with the exterior and interior walls. And he
Okay,
claims he's gonna keep going even after that for the veneer.
He has
Right.
to do the fireplace before the roof goes on, cause they use that fireplace as a support,
Yeah, support.
so.
And
He'll be on
columns, there's a
site
couple
for-
columns over there too on the north side.
Yep.
Okay, Link the Lakes update.
I don't think
There is
there
much.
is an update for this month because we haven't met since the property owners meeting. The next step is still just to get the application in for the TAP grant, and Lisa and I are meeting about that tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess that's enough, yeah.
Is it TAP?
TAP, yep,
Okay.
TAP. Transportation Assistance Program? I don't know, there's so many
I know,
acronyms.
right?
Okay, the next item, item 7, is approval of the meeting minutes from our previous meeting of December 19th. Is there
I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we
They were
have a
very
motion.
nicely sent out, so
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Great job.
Did a great job. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
It's Transportation Alternatives Program.
Alternative.
I had the A incorrect.
Okay, that brings us down to item 8, grants. The first grant that we're talking about is the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation grant for Vibrant Spaces. It was due on January the 1st. Jamie took care of that.
It was due January 31st, actually.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
But I did bring, if anyone would like to see a copy, this was the submitted grant. So,
And the second ARP Community Challenge Grant, I completed that and filed that as well, so that's done. I was wondering, Jamie, do you suppose we could get the grant committee to work on these next 2 items? The Outdoor Recreation Legacy Program and the Knowles Nelson?
potentially, I think though the grant committee is gonna ask that like a draft is done and then they help to assist to flourish it. Yeah, but, I mean, we can always ask.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little difficult for me to get the Outdoor Recreation Legacy Grant done by April the 10th.
Is that one we've applied for in the past?
No, that was just kinda came to my email the other day.
And what would that be for? For the
Band shell? Or disc
Well, we could
golf?
make it for the band shell, certainly.
I think at this moment though, we're far enough along with the band shell that maybe we wanna make it for the other projects that would surround the band shell, just so we could finalize items in the
Yeah,
park.
we could expand to the pickleball
Yeah.
courts and maybe some of the
The next
structures that are.
phase of the park.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
We've also talked about, you know, a beautification project, like a sculpture or a mural or some sort of public art display that would, and signage, some additional signage, including donor signs, wayfinding signs.
Yeah, we've got a lot to do yet,
Yeah.
so.
And the Knowles Nelson would be same thing?
Yeah, Knowles Nelson is really, and I'm not as familiar with the outdoor recreation, but the Knowles Nelson that's really focused on trails, outdoor recreation, so like wayfinding signage might not, unless it was interpretive signage, we would have to kinda see what they would accept for application.
So that might
Yeah,
be better.
the only thing
than
about the
disco.
Knowles Nelson grant this year is the money is being allocated by regional parts of the state. Last year it was across the whole state, so it went into a big committee and they looked through all the ideas, and in our particular area, none were granted. So that's gonna be different this year in our area, which is the south, mid-central or something like that. There'll be grants that will be awarded in that area, and our grant specialist there from the DNR has talked to us about that, and I think really if we do the same thing that we did last year, we might have a good chance of getting it.
Can you resubmit what the plan was last year?
Yeah, I can go through the thing. It's just, it's a laborious thing. By the time you get done, you've got 40 pages of stuff, and it takes a while,
Yeah.
you know.
And you're leaving on vacation, right?
No, I'll be back by then. I can probably get that done by May 1st.
Okay.
It was just the,
Outdoor.
just one outdoor recreation. And Jamie, if we start talking about the pickleball courts, you threw out a number the other day of 45,000, I thought.
I threw out a number of 50 because we had priced just the surfacing of them, like the lane of the aggregate and then that, whatever that surface coating is. We had done an estimate with Farner because they've done a series of courts for different municipalities, and that was 50,000. That's just the court.
Because when I put it together, I came up with like 175, I think.
Well, my number didn't include fencing.
Yeah, I had fencing, I probably had lighting,
Yeah, I didn't have, that's just the court.
and I had all the striping, all the painting of the court and everything. So it's somewhere between those two numbers, hopefully.
And I guess it would depend on what that base is, and the cost of oil has increased, right? So if that base is blacktop with some sort of overlay coating, it could be likely more.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to look back at my notes to see whether I had used cement or blacktop. But, yeah, we could focus it that way, I think. Okay, moving on to item 9, discussion and possible action on the following items. The Walden Park shoreline planting, DNR funding, site prep and maintenance. Dave Trudeau is with us here today to talk about that, and I think there's some new information that you brought forth for us last
Yes,
meeting.
let me also start, share this is just
Yeah.
my initial rendering of the site and my vision. But, we've got a long way to go. It's very preliminary at this point. But my vision is to make that site a demonstration area, you know, a site that can be really showcase what you can do with the native planting. Right now, it's a fairly steep slope, it's mowed turf grass all the way down, as close as you can get to the water without, making tracks in the mud, so I'd like to see that, planted to a native buffer. And what I did find out with talking to some folks about DNR grants, that there's one of the surface water grant categories is for restoration, and that can be up to $50,000. And I was also told that was a category that was very undersubscribed, which kind of led me to believe that it's like, if we put together a good project, it will very likely, get funded, so. We're talking surface water grants, we're talking at least a year out, because the deadline for application is 1st of November. So then, it would be awarded and the grant period would start March 15th of 2024, so we're planning a year out. So I'd kinda like to move forward more with this proposal. I'd like to maybe see if, from this committee, there are a couple folks that would be interested in working with me. There are a lot of details to work out, you know, how some kind of a path would run down to the kayak launch, how we would do the site prep, if there's a contractor, is there one of the landscape companies in the area, do they have like a 75 horsepower tractor with a rototiller? You know, I mean, we don't want to be out there with our little 5-horse garden rototillers for weeks and weeks. So there's some work that needs to be done by contractors. There's a lot of detail needs to still be worked out about watering the site, whether something could be, whether water could be pulled from the lake to water, whether something could be put on a timer. It might even be cost effective with grant money to actually hook up an electric pump, even though there isn't electricity on the site now. That might be the best alternative. There's a lot to investigate yet, so.
Okay.
So that's where I'd like to get some folks kind of working out some of these details, and you know, we've got time to think this through, and the product I'd like to see applied is a fairly new product called a native vegetative mat. It's by a company called Agricol that's down by Evansville. Actually made a trip down there last fall and looked at that product. It essentially is a coconut fiber mat. They plant it with native seed, they grow it, and then they mow it, and then they roll it up, so then you're laying it out like you're putting on like you're doing a lawn, you know. So it's, except that they're 200-pound rolls. So, but they clip it, so we need, you know, could town maintenance make a trip to Evansville to haul all this back, and as, you know, as part of the 25% match for the grant, some of that kind of stuff needs to be worked into it too. So there might be some other funding sources, Visit Rome and others that could help.
Is that Evansville,
some of the
Indiana?
funders. Pardon me?
Indiana? Evansville?
No,
It's in Wisconsin.
Where? Wisconsin?
yeah, it's
Okay.
down south of Madison.
Okay.
I think it's Evansville.
Yep, there's an Evansville.
Okay, okay.
I'm sure it's
You
Evansville.
said 25% match? Is that the DNR, the grants are
Yeah, the grant is 75%.
75, 25?
And it could be up to
Okay.
50,000, so the
Okay.
total project value would need to be
75.
25% on top of the
Yeah.
50, so.
So we'd have to come up with
12.5.
probably, well, are we still talking about 60,000 or not?
I would say probably in that ballpark.
Just for the mat, not the prep and
Matt, when I
the,
went down to Evansville, their normal price is 50, they would give it to us for 40 per square yard.
okay,
So that's 42,000 for the mat.
Yeah.
okay.
So then we could look at the remaining 50, the remaining 8,000 could be DNR grant funding that would go
Yeah.
toward whatever we figure out for the site prep and the watering and that kind of thing, and then.
So we might only have to come up
If we
with
come up with a
10,000 or so.
total price above that, we might be asking, Visit Rome or some other entity to try to help fund another 10,000.
Yeah, I think that's a definite possibility, for getting the additional 20%, 25%.
And things like like I said, if the town helps transport the material or whatever, that's all part of an in-kind match that is part of the match as well. So-
Or our labor
so
if we
it
help.
doesn't all need to be cash.
Okay.
for the
Or, I
project.
mean, worst case, we could
Kind of
rent a truck
service.
and go down there and
If-
get it
if there are,
ourselves.
You know,
Yeah.
a bunch of volunteers that
Yeah.
go out to help lay this down and get it down in place, you know, that.
Yeah,
can all be part of
You
the
know,
match.
thinking about this the other night when you mentioned it, the hardest part about the whole thing, I think, is keeping it watered for 2 years.
Yeah, it really is.
But that's where we look into the pump possibility
Right,
of the
so
pump.
if it's a pump on a timer, that would be the ideal. So that's why I say it.
Which-
When we investigate costs, it might even make, the most sense to, you know, drive a sand point and put in electricity and electric pump. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know enough to figure out the water pressures and stuff we would need to cover that hillside. But we can certainly contact some people who put in, different kinds of sprinkling systems and gather that information.
If you put in a 1.5-horse sprinkler pump, a lake pump, you could do it easily.
I mean, when you look,
Well,
when you
then
look
you
at
have
the
to have
area,
electricity,
it was like 190 feet by 55, so I mean, it's a little bit of a challenge because of the hillside, but we know that at your house, Paul, you definitely pull up a pretty good hillside for the
Yeah.
lake,
Yeah, I do
So-
too, so, yeah.
so,
Can be done.
so it can be done, yeah,
So
exactly.
we would maybe look at the cost of putting in electric, maybe just a camping pedestal or something out by the road. I don't know that Adams Columbia would do anything else. They'd probably just put a pedestal out by the road, and we'd have to add that to the cost.
Yeah, it's probably another 5,000 for that.
I was gonna say 3,000.
Yeah, I mean, there are gas-powered pumps and stuff as well, but in my mind, electric with some kind of a timer is probably the way to go, but we need to do
Yep.
more investigation.
Well, maybe keeping that in mind, we think going forward, if we have electricity out there, we have a lighted sign or something. I don't know. I mean, there are probably other uses for having electric on that.
As
site.
part of this
you're
project too,
gonna- yeah.
I'd like to see, and I would certainly help the grant application to have some kind of interpretation about, you know, native buffers and,
Yep.
and to promote
Healthy
this
lakes.
as a,
Yeah.
And then promote this project as something special that we can
absolutely.
guide people
Yeah.
to.
Well, we could possibly put a light pole there. You know, run electric to the light pole, and then from the light pole, run electric for the pumps. And it'd be nice to have a light there, because if on a timer, so if you do have somebody going out, paddling around, when they come in and it's dark out, they'll have some light there, so that's a consideration.
If we would do that amount of site prep where we would have essentially a contractor coming out to work up that earth, is it worth revisiting then, putting in the back and forth to make this handicapped accessible? And would our grant do better if it was handicapped accessible with the DNR? Cause if you're gonna have the people out there doing the earthwork, why not make the grade right so you would open it up for those
Yeah,
that,
The only
just
problem with
don't
that is the
think-
hill is so steep, Jamie, you're gonna have to use up a lot of territory to keep the grade right, to make a wheelchair go down there.
I think the cost would be in the cement. I mean, because it has to be hard packed,
I
right?
don't think that's the right location for it. I think if we're gonna do something like that, we have to find a different location.
I like the thinking because, like you said, we're
Yeah.
already
I did meet also this week, just this last Wednesday, I met with, Adams County Land and Water. So I met with Chuck Spilsky and, Kiefer Soroka, the new land and, the new water specialist. So I got them involved because if there's a disturbance, it's going to require a county permit, so I wanted to get them involved. They came out, and I haven't seen the results yet, but they, brought out survey equipment to do a contour map of that site. So that we can get a get a nice map, laid out in AutoCAD and everything so that we can get, instead of just my aerial drawn on Google Earth, we can get something a little more accurate than that.
I thought they had told me we didn't need a permit as long as we were replacing vegetation with vegetation.
Well,
The
if you're
DNR,
gonna
I think
be-
the county,
Okay.
yeah,
I talked with the county, but yeah, I'll have to look back through my notes.
just because you're gonna be disturbing what's there,
Yep.
there's, you know, there's gonna be a little bit of lag time between the time it's, not much though, not with this mat material compared to.
I think if we went to all the trouble of putting in electric and a pump on a timer, might just as well make a underground sprinkling system there. It wouldn't be that much more. Could probably do it with, 5 or 6 heads.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, I mean, maybe you could even lay it out as if it were underground, but not put it underground, just have piping out there, just as long as we're using plastic pipe rather than hose, cause I know when I use, I've had kind of some long-term projects with regular hose, when it sweats, it seems to attract the rodents. Red squirrels and mice eating your hose, but if you went with something that was plastic, as if it were an underground,
I
but then
mean,
not put
even
it
if you
underground.
abandoned it in 2 years, you could salvage the pump and the timer. You could just leave
Right,
the
right,
other
I
stuff
mean,
underneath the
it's-
ground.
it's
You're not talking
It's just
more than
until it's established, so at that
probably
point.
400 or 500 bucks,
Right,
maybe 600.
get a return on it, so.
When does the grant need to be submitted? The grant?
November, you said
November?
November first.
November, and it would be awarded, the start time would be March 15th of 2024.
And
Okay, can we have a volunteer to work the grant?
I'll work with them.
Great.
So I know we'll probably talk about this under disc golf too, but there is no more subcommittees after, and I forget, I apologize, it was a law case with the school board, but if you're gonna meet separately, it has to still be, I mean, if you're meeting on town business regarding Parks and Rec, we'd still have to notice those meetings.
If there's only like one person?
It's still like a subcommittee or a subgrouping meeting, my understanding is you still have to.
Really?
You still have to provide notice.
Okay.
We talked about it with disc golf too, sometimes there's people that are more interested in projects, but you just, we would still just have to provide notice.
And would we have to meet here then?
You just have to notice where you are meeting, you could meet at Dave's house, you just have to provide the address
Or
that you're
could we
meeting
just,
there.
yeah, or Zoom,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is
and then-
that for, even if it's just like, just Melissa meeting with Dave, or is it if there's one other board member?
No, it's if you're meeting about
About Parks
Park
and Rec?
business.
so
Any,
regardless of
any,
size.
any.
regardless of size.
Okay.
Well, what if I go uptown and talk to a sign contractor?
But that's not putting together the plan, right? You're collecting information, but it's not,
Okay.
you're talking about putting together the plan, right?
Seems
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, well, we want to do it right, but
Okay, well,
Yeah, where's the launch at?
thanks.
Yeah, I mean, where is it? We ordered it, didn't we?
yeah,
It's on
it's
order.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, how long before we're gonna get it, and when is it gonna be installed?
I just got an email from Alex saying it's on order, weather permitting. It could possibly be delivered to the site as early as March.
Well, that's what I'm saying, we've gotta determine on where we want it, so they could plan on their planting and everything around it, cause that's gonna be part of that.
I would assume the launch will be in and being used for at least a year before we get to that point of.
Right, well, that's what we've gotta make sure that everybody knows about it, so we know what to do, so. That should be part of
My
the
only
planning.
concern, and kinda when I laid this out, is I just wanna make sure the path going down to the launch is not directly downgrade, that it goes at
Yeah.
an angle,
Did
so
A little
that,
bit, yeah.
so that the runoff is filtering through the buffer.
We kind of met down there once before. Did you want to go again, just to make sure that your ideas are in it too? I can't remember. You're okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep,
okay,
sounds good, yeah.
yeah.
If you can just let us, if Alex is gonna install it this first time, just let us know. I think it's helpful if we have someone there to watch.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure he'll contact us when it's scheduled.
we don't have to, if I remember correctly, we don't have to take this one out in the winter. It wouldn't have to be rolled up.
Right.
But it's still just good to know.
Yep.
Yeah, we had kind
how
of
it
looked
got
at it
into the
before,
water,
but
right?
Sure.
gotta refresh my memory where we decided we were gonna put it.
Yeah, I don't, I mean,
think
we'll.
I know, but we'll figure it out.
We'll handle that when
Yeah.
it's time.
Okay.
But yeah, if we're gonna start planning this, though, we should, like he said, we should kind of know where it's gonna go. So if we're gonna do any path down to it, we know.
And I would volunteer to order the sprinkling parts and put it in if we get that far.
Okay.
on the pump and all.
Virtual though is a great idea, so, I mean, it's easy for me to set up a WebEx, and then that's easy to share, so. Does someone need assistance out there?
No, it's,
It's just Mark.
Oh, okay.
okay,
Okay, just before we move on, so is it just Melissa and I at this point? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just want-
Okay,
Gave you Melissa, what more do you need?
And if you need,
I always want more.
she's a dynamo.
we can always, reach out and ask other questions too
We'll,
if we
we'll
need it.
communicate as needed.
Yeah. So, yeah, whenever you wanna meet, we'll just let Jamie know. And how much notice do we have to give? How many days?
24 hours.
Okay, 24 hours
24
notice. Okay. We'll figure something out.
Okay, item 9 is done then. Brings us to item 10, disc golf, our memorandum of understanding and approval, hopefully today. The memorandum will be between the town of Rome and the school district in Nakusa for use of their school park, I guess it is, school forest.
Yep, so I had sent out the MOU, and thank you everyone for your input. There were 2 inputs that were provided. One was about the parking lot, and one was about if the school wanted to use it for, say, an event that was just a school event, and they would want it closed off at that moment in time, because it would just be for the school. So, we will update the MOU with those 2 very minor changes. It will just say that the school should provide us notice if they need to close it for a school-only event, they would notice the town so we could notice the public. And the other piece with the parking lot, that we would reestablish the gravel lot that's there, but if additional improvements, like if someday we wanted to blacktop it or make it larger to fit, that would be of a shared, we would have the conversation about sharing in that maintenance. That's not to say that what that share might be or how it would be divided, but we would have that conversation. We're not taking on all of that responsibility for that parking lot, except for reestablishing the gravel and the gravel driveway that's there.
I had a couple questions about the memorandum.
Sure?
On the second line on the right, is that word supposed to be politic?
Yes.
Okay, and then down under the middle page there where is the 1, 2, 3, it's the 4th paragraph from the bottom. The last sentence there is, well, it's only one sentence, I guess. Parties have a collective desire to create community partnerships, promote increased connectedness of community trail routes, and to increase area recreational opportunities through development of a park spaces. It should be just park spaces.
Which page was that again? I'm sorry.
The 4th from the bottom on the first page, 4th paragraph from the bottom.
Thanks, Dave.
Development of park spaces. I think the A could be stricken.
Got it.
And then on the next page, the first paragraph talks about grants a town a non-exclusive agreement. Is it exclusive or non-exclusive license? I just thought,
I mean, and that's what Nick has is non-exclusive. So
I just questioned that.
I can ask for a larger, I am sure there's a logical reason that I don't know the answer to, but I'm sure there's a logical reason why it is non-exclusive, but I can ask.
Okay. And then on page 3, under termination of or revocation, the first paragraph there, I think it's a little confusing. Because of paragraph 2 is what makes it confusing. If you go on to, go back to paragraph 2, I guess. paragraph 2 talks about the termination of it, and it will be renewed for an additional 10-year periods. And then when you go back to this paragraph A here, it just kind of makes it sound like it can't be terminated during the first 20 years. Whereas paragraph 2 kind of states that it's gonna go for 20 years. It doesn't talk about
So the term of this lease,
it's 20 years.
or excuse me, not lease, the term of this license shall commence on the effective date given above and remain in effect for 20 years, unless terminated thereafter set forth.
Okay,
At the expiration of the term of this agreement shall be automatically renewed for an additional 10-year period on the same terms and conditions as set forth in the agreement, unless either party, at least 120 days prior to the expiration of the initial term or any automatic renewal term, gives written notice to the other of the intention not to renew this agreement at the end of such term. And then the subsequent says, the termination or revocation, upon the expiration of the initial term, this agreement may be revoked by the school district at any time with or without cause. However, the school district shall make all reasonable efforts to provide the town with a 120-day notice. So that is a commitment for the 20 years. They're saying at the end of the 20 years
Right.
before the renewal.
but it could be terminated before then, right, or not? Under paragraph 2.
If
Unless
it's
terminated
mutually,
as herein set forth.
like if there's a good reason
Yeah,
that's spelled out.
Yeah, because that's for the initial term or the automatic renewal, unless either party at least 120 days prior to the expiration of the initial term. Oh, prior to the expiration of the initial term, so no, you're 20 years. This would be a 20-year agreement.
okay.
Yeah, because unless either party at least 120 days prior to the expiration of the initial term or any automatic renewal term. So it would have to be, it couldn't be 120 days during the first, you couldn't provide a 120-day notice in the first 20 years and say, we'd like to exit.
Okay. As long as it's clear, it just a little confusing when I read it first time.
Legalese.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
That's why we got lawyers.
To confuse us.
So we're not gonna be able to approve this tonight?
No, I think we could, provided that,
Those two small changes.
those, well, it'll be 3, because we'll take out that A. That those 3 small, so including the piece about the parking lot, that the school gives us notice if they need to close it or close it off, and we'll remove that A. I feel comfortable with that non-exclusive piece, I'm sure that's,
Do
we
you
still
have
got-
wording in mind for giving us notice of a school exclusive function, like a week, 2 weeks? Are we gonna put that in writing or
yeah, I think we would put a 30-day notice,
30 days?
yeah.
I guess if they have a problem with that, they'll let us know.
Right, and you have to, I mean, you're not gonna like, everybody, let's go today, right? Like, they're gonna have to get a bus, like, they'll,
Yeah.
30 days, they should,
They should have
Yeah.
it.
So if we approve this tonight with those 3 changes that we've talked about, it would still go up to the school board so they could have an initial review of it before we send it to the board, correct?
yes, yeah. If you approved it with those 3 changes tonight, Nick would make those changes, I would send it to Sue, once it's, that, those changes are done. It would go to the school board, it would be in their hands before it came back to town board.
Okay, fine. Okay, so is there a motion to approve this license agreement?
Also move with those 3 small changes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So that's pretty much it for disc golf, I think, right?
I have one more question though, because we were talking about meeting with Michelle Peterson and the other the other guy, the other designer she knows. So we'll probably do that and then we just give notice, just like,
Right, then if you wanna do that virtual, I'm happy to set up a WebEx for you.
Yeah, and as I was, also when I was talking to, Terry Whitmore with the school district, he wants to get a group from the school involved a little bit in the planning process at some point. So, you know, we may want to secure the site first and then get together with all interested parties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd kind of like to talk to Michelle a little more about the design, but yeah, I think we need to get it,
Official.
official and surveyed and,
If Michelle's got a designer that we might want to use, now we have two designers, we have to decide which.
yeah, she said this one has a higher grading and he might even do it cheaper or maybe even free, just to bring it to the area. So,
Yeah, and at that point, we might wanna just look for putting together a request for proposal. It could be, we've done that for parks, it can be fairly simple as to say, an 18-hole disc golf course on this many acres, and we would like these things included. Like, we'd like a water feature included, we'd like, you know, those kinds of things. And put that out.
Yeah, and then at some point, I would like Michelle to talk to Visit Rome.
yep, oh, definitely. I've talked to Lisa about this. Yeah, and she wants a good proposal. That's why I'd really like to sit down and talk with Michelle and get moving along with
Maybe
some
at
of
the
this.
time we present the grant to them, she could also be there to talk about the aspects of this.
It wasn't even maybe just a grant. She said we could maybe do something different than a grant. If we had a real good proposal, they could maybe 100% fund it.
Yeah, I think it still would go through their grant process, though, wouldn't it?
I think we would have to have that conversation with Visit Rome, but we're nowhere near that
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we're,
That's where I wanted to talk to her a little more about, like, other places where they've done this, get some research on some of these, you know, a little more in-depth conversation and that, so I think it'd be nice to sit down and talk with her, so. But do you think we should wait, though, until we get that agreement?
I think so.
Okay. Okay.
yeah, and I hear some interest from the school with being involved, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
then we'll just, again, and if the school wants to do virtual because that's easier, then they don't have to come over here, especially if there are students that maybe wanna be involved.
Right.
We can make a virtual option happen.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll keep this on the agenda for the next meeting then, okay?
Yes.
The next item, item 11, is the memorials policy. We're gonna review that today and hopefully approve it. And I see that Jamie has gone through the one that was presented to us last week, or last month, and changed the wording to represent the town of Rome.
Yes,
And she's also modified the application on the back to include some drawing information, so that's good.
so this, if the Parks Committee felt comfortable, could still approve tonight, but I think this will also probably have to just be addressed with Plan Commission separately too. The way that when we worked it through with Attorney Flanagan, you'll see this under 1C, where someone would present to the town administrator an application, but where the application is proposed for a town park, the application would be reviewed by Parks and Rec, that makes sense. Where the application is proposed outside of a town park, the application shall be reviewed by the Plan Commission.
Yes, okay.
Right? And I thought, well, it makes sense to do it now in this policy, cause somebody might say, I'd like it at the corner of,
Yeah.
right? So then the town board, may grant, with modification, deny or refer the application back to the Park or Rec or Plan Commission. So the way that this is structured is that even if it's on town policy, it would still be a recommendation to town board, and the town board would then see those, whatever those memorials might be. Now, we would still, we have tentatively approved two, we haven't approved placement, but, I think it would be easy for draft to complete this, and we could ask Snow Bandits to complete this. I don't necessarily see any issue with those two in those instances, but if we approve the policy, we would probably take those, retrospective then through that process also.
So Jamie, you want us to try to approve this thing tonight? I haven't read the whole thing.
It's whatever you guys feel comfortable with, but it is, it's updated to be us specific, and then the application is also, Actually used our volunteer, Nick used our volunteer form as the template for this. But
Yeah, I would,
Supervisor Barhide did ask about the initials. I think Nick was just trying to, cover that,
yeah.
you know, those things were read and submitted when he
I
put
think-
those on.
If you just took out the first underlined spot here before it, all applications include drawing, and then just change please initial attached. That'd be in two places, on the first part and the second part as well. The second paragraph. The rest
Are
is
we in
fine.
a hurry to have this
No,
approved? Maybe we take some time to read it
yeah, I
over.
think, take it home and read it, yeah.
And then also let Plan Commission read it over and
Yeah, I mean, they'll have to
feedback.
put it forward onto a future agenda.
Okay.
But we started here because it originated from here. But no, we're not necessarily in a hurry. I
Next-
think we would, if we got another request at this moment, we would just ask them to wait until we were all the way through the process.
Yeah, I think next month we'll approve this thing and forward it to the Plan Commission for their whatever, and if they have changes, we'll make those and then present
When
it
do
to the
they
board.
meet? Is it something we could have them look at this copy and tentatively, you know, agree? I mean, if they have any problems with it, maybe we would,
So they meet the second Tuesday of the month, so this would have to go to March, because their meeting's tomorrow. But our meeting in March likely will be late. So it's likely they could probably see it in March, and then if we could bring back, if they had any input towards it, yep,
There's no hurry though, really, I mean,
no.
Right.
okay.
Well, we can ask to be put on, have it put on their agenda then for their next meeting then.
Yep, and then I think I would just ask if you are able to send input before the next meeting, that's always helpful.
we can always include that in
Right,
their
okay.
packet then
Yep.
too, yeah.
Input
Okay.
or questions.
All right, let's review this and bring it back to our next meeting then.
Agreed.
That brings us to item 12, determine plans to update and revise our comprehensive outdoor recreational plan, or CORP. I see Jamie has got something here for us.
Yep, so this is a little more extensive of a document, but I did ask Jeff Saunders, who did our prior corp, to put together a proposal for updating it. And this is what he provided. There is a cost to do the work, a proposed budget on page 7. So, given that this is it's, I think 13 pages. It is 18 pages. If you also wanted to review this in more detail, and we would make a motion next month if we wanted to proceed with the update. If any immediate questions jump out, I'm happy to also,
And we're updating it to,
just because we, every 5 years you wanna put an update to it.
okay,
Just so it stays current, and you are also, you'll see in here, he will do a series of public input pieces, just to make sure, you know, things haven't changed or as things.
Attitudes,
Yes, yeah, that
whatever.
things,
Anything big changed around town.
yeah, that came up to the top before, or continuing to come up, or if focuses might change.
Is this a similar process of what they did with the original?
It is a similar process, when you, on page 2, when he talks about the action plan, the initial meeting, the data collection, the document preparation, so I would say it's like a smidge less, because we do have an existing plan, so there was a separate subcommittee that had to be formed and met because we didn't have Parks and Rec. I expect this will go faster than that one, just because we have, but there still will be the same opportunity for public
I think
engagement.
there was like, at least after the subcommittee met, there was at least 2 public meetings after that, I think. One
Yeah.
was a vision meeting and another was to vote on them.
Is the funding for this come out of like a Parks and Rec budget, or?
It would come out of Parks and Rec. So you did have, I think like 9,000 that could have been used for other projects this year, so this would come out of likely that.
And the timeline would be, if we wanted to go forward with this proposal, would be this season, this spring, whatever?
Once started, he put in here that he believes 6 months, to completion.
Jamie, who does the counties? Is that the Northwest Regional?
I don't know if it's the North Central Regional Planning Commission.
I thought they did the counties, that they do all their park plans and everything, so.
It would make sense that they would. I think that there is an outdoor rec plan update for Adams County this year also.
Right, and I was just wondering what would be the difference in cost or whatever between them and this organization. I was just wondering.
We'd have to ask. I'm sure that
I would like to just inquire and find out,
Yeah.
because I know the county uses them quite a bit on a lot of their updating, their recreation and other plans that they have.
Is this something that if we decide tonight, that's it, we move forward, or does it have to go to the town board?
I think it would be a forward of a recommendation to town board given the price.
It seems to me like a lot of money.
Everything is.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
But North Central Regional Planning Commission is a good idea. I mean, just to get a comparison.
Right,
And to also get a comparison of timeline, right? Would it take a lot longer if we went with them versus going with, who's completed it previously? So
right.
it's,
Well, I know they're experienced at doing it. That's why I asked about it, because,
it's worth the question, right? It
right,
doesn't,
doesn't hurt.
yeah.
yeah, I'd be for exploring other alternatives.
Does somebody have a contact to, or do we like put out a request for proposal or something like that, or?
We could put out a request for proposal. I have contact with North Central, so I could just ask them and then maybe bring that back for the next meeting and then.
And that would give
depending-
us time to look over this proposal and.
Yeah, and depending on what
Right.
they say back, then maybe we do just to see what else is out there.
We might also wanna bounce this off Bill, see if he wanted to do it.
Yeah, I don't know if Bill does park plans, but I could ask. Bill is doing our strategic plan, the
He's,
town's strategic
I
plan.
mean, both these guys are really good. I wouldn't take anything away from either one of them, but
Yeah,
just
one,
to see.
one thing nice about this is he did the last one.
Yeah.
It would be seamless, but it doesn't hurt to ask around.
Yeah, I know Northwest did the bicycle plan too for the county, so.
Yep.
All right,
Keep that on the
anything else then on this?
Nope, it would just stay on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
We're due for the plan update, right?
Hey, do we wanna add anything to the agenda for next meeting? Probably got everything covered that we're working on right now, at least, and have plans for.
Yeah, I think the agenda would be pretty similar.
Okay.
Were we gonna get prices on the pickleball courts? You know, we were looking into that for future, so I was just wondering if,
Well, we'd have to go out with a request for quote.
Yeah, and I don't know that
We're not that far.
I was like, can we just get the band shell a little further?
Yeah, because we don't really have the
well, I'm
funds
not
right
saying we
now.
go ahead with it. I'd say look into what the cost would be, so.
I guess that's kind of included in our grants, right? Is that was what where the discussion came up.
Yeah, we could put the grants together based on what we have right now, but before we get into actually designing it, we have to
Okay.
decide whether we're gonna have 4 courts or 6 courts or 8 or whatever.
Were pickleball courts just put in over at Arrowhead too?
Yes,
Yes.
6 courts, I think.
Where are they over there?
They're by the chalet.
Ah,
Yeah, I
so we could go
apologize.
by and take a look at those just to see what they did.
On 16th?
Uh-huh, yeah,
Oh.
they're down there. And I believe they are fenced, and I think, Bozen, who built their building out of Marshville, did that work for them.
Would Joel have the particulars of that, you suppose?
I would think.
I'll ask him. You got any cost information on that?
Yeah, it's a good contact. I mean, that was a fairly recent project that would give us
Yeah.
a good idea of. Yeah, if you could confirm the number and the cost.
Okay, so I'll add pickleball to the agenda here for next time, and I'll contact him.
Could I just clarify, you were gonna check with the North Central Regional Planning Commission?
Yes.
Okay,
I know, it's a mouthful.
it is.
Okay, that brings us to our next item, the next meeting, time and date. If we're gonna have a March meeting, I thought March 13th would be good. I will not be here. If you wanna meet without me, that's fine. I'll try to get an agenda together this week for that meeting if you want, or we can go out till April 10th or so.
We could probably, we have some things to decide in March, right? You can always give us your input.
Right.
Yeah, because we have.
When is the plan commission and gonna look at this? What's their meeting?
March 14th. So if you wanted them to see it before you brought it back, it would, if we went to March 20th would be better for our meeting.
I would be in favor of that, so.
March 20th for us?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put together a meeting then for March 20th, and I'll publish an agenda for that this week. Barring nothing else, then I guess we'll call the meeting adjourned.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned at 5:56 p.m.